Samuel Reed lived alone on a quiet piece of land that sat on the edge of a wide forest. His farm was old, but he took care of it with steady hands and a patient heart. Every morning, he woke up before the sun, fed his animals, checked the fences, and walked through the fields where golden grass swayed gently in the wind. Life moved slowly for him. And though he never complained, the silence of his days sometimes felt heavy. The memories of his parents, now long gone, stayed with him like soft shadows that followed him everywhere. He had grown used to being alone, but deep inside, a small part of him wished for a voice other than his own to share the mornings and evenings. One late afternoon, just when the sky was turning orange, Samuel noticed that one of his young calves had wandered away. The calf was curious by nature, and often slipped out of the fence whenever a small gap appeared. Samuel grabbed his lantern, even though there was still some light left, and walked toward the forest. He did not like the idea of the calf entering the woods because it was easy to get lost in there, and the land was full of places where animals could disappear for days. As he walked along the fence line, he found the broken section the calf had escaped through. The wooden post had fallen over, but what surprised Samuel was the way it was broken. The wood looked bent in a strange direction, almost as if something strong had pushed it outward instead of inward. Samuel rubbed his chin, confused, but he did not want to waste time thinking about it. The longer he waited, the farther the calf would wander. He stepped into the forest, brushing aside branches and stepping over roots twisted across the ground. The deeper he went, the cooler the air became. The forest around his farm had always been quiet, almost sleepy, and he never worried much about it. But this time, something felt different. It was as though the trees were watching him, waiting for him to discover something he had never imagined. After walking for a few minutes, Samuel's eyes caught something unusual on the ground. He crouched down, lifted his lantern a little higher, and stared in disbelief. There, pressed deep into the soil, was a footprint. But it wasn't from any animal he had ever seen. It was shaped like a human foot, only far, far bigger. So big that Samuel's entire hand could fit inside it with space to spare. He felt a small sting of fear in his chest, but at the same time, a strange sense of wonder mixed with it. How could something that large leave such a clear mark? He looked around to see if there were more. Sure enough, a trail of giant footprints moved deeper into the woods. For a moment, Samuel considered turning back and forgetting he ever saw them, but his calf was still missing. And maybe, just maybe, whoever or whatever left those footprints had nothing to do with the animal. So he took a deep breath and continued. As he followed the trail, the forest grew quieter. The usual sounds of birds, insects, and rustling leaves faded, until Samuel could only hear his own footsteps. The footprints led him to a small, open space, where moonlight slipped through the tall trees like silver threads. And there, standing near a fallen log, was the missing calf. It was unharmed, simply staring at someone or something. Samuel froze. Just a few steps away from the calf stood a figure so tall he had to tilt his head back to see her face. It was a girl with long, dark hair falling down her back, braided in a way he had only seen in old Apache pictures. Her skin was warm in color, her features calm and clear, and her clothes looked handmade, stitched carefully with patterns of her tribe. But what stood out more than anything was her height. She was taller than any person Samuel had ever seen, almost twice his height. Yet she did not look frightening or wild. She stood quietly, her hands relaxed at her sides, as if she had been expecting him. Samuel did not move, afraid of surprising her or the calf. But the giant Apache girl slowly turned her head toward him. Their eyes met, and Samuel felt a wave of calm wash over him. Her eyes were soft, steady, and filled with something he could not describe. Maybe wisdom, maybe sadness, or maybe kindness. The girl did not step forward. Instead, she spoke in a gentle tone, her voice surprisingly soft for someone her size. "Your animal is safe." Samuel swallowed, unsure of what to say. He was not sure if he should thank her or ask who she was, or even run back to his farm. but something about her presence made him stay still. She did not seem dangerous, and she had not harmed his calf. "Thank you," he finally said, his voice a little shaky. The girl nodded with the smallest smile, as if appreciating his gratitude. She took a slow step back, giving the calf space to return to Samuel, and the calf trotted toward him happily. Samuel placed a hand on the young animal's head but kept his eyes on the girl. "You don't have to worry," she said softly, noticing his unease. "I mean no harm." Samuel couldn't help but notice how politely she spoke. She looked like someone who had grown up with strong traditions and deep respect for nature and people. But her size was something he could not ignore. It was extraordinary. Before he could gather the courage to ask her anything, the girl looked up at the sky, then back at him. "I should leave," she whispered. "People fear what they don't understand." Samuel, still shocked by the encounter, found his voice again. "Wait, are you alone out here?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes. For a long time now." Her voice carried a quiet sadness, something that touched Samuel's heart more than he expected. He could sense her loneliness, even though she stood strong before him. It reminded him of his own life days filled with silence, nights spent wishing for someone to talk to. "You look like you need help," he said gently. "Or at least some food and water. You're welcome to come by the farm. I don't have much, but I can share." The girl seemed surprised by his offer, as if she had not heard kindness in a very long time. She looked at him with cautious hope. "Are you sure?" she asked. Samuel nodded. "Yes. Anyone who brings back my calf is welcome." Slowly, carefully, the girl stepped a little closer into the moonlight. Samuel could see her more clearly now, the strength in her posture, the gentleness in her eyes, and the humble way she carried herself despite her size. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, and yet something told him she meant no danger. She simply seemed alone. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The forest around them felt peaceful, as though it accepted their meeting. Samuel realized that this night, which began with a simple search for a lost calf, had turned into something far more unexpected. The girl finally nodded. "Thank you," she said quietly, as if the words were precious. "My name is Nayeli." Samuel smiled a little. "I'm Samuel," she repeated his name softly, almost testing the sound of it, then followed him and the calf toward the farm. Samuel walked slowly, so she would not feel rushed. He still felt unsure, still full of questions, but he believed he had made the right choice. As they stepped out of the woods and the open field came into view, Samuel felt something shifting inside him. The emptiness that had lived in his heart for years felt lighter, as if a door had opened. He did not know who Nayeli truly was or where she had come from, but he sensed one thing clearly. This meeting was not an accident. It was the beginning of a story he had never expected, one that would change his quiet life forever. Samuel led Nayeli toward his farm at a gentle pace, making sure she didn't feel rushed or uncomfortable. The sky above them was growing darker, and stars began to appear one by one. The cool evening breeze brushed through the tall grass as the three of them, Samuel, the calf, and the giant Apache girl, walked quietly across the field. Samuel still couldn't believe what was happening. Just hours ago, his biggest worry had been fixing an old fence. Now, he was guiding someone extraordinary to his home. When they reached the front of the small farmhouse, Samuel felt a little nervous. Would she fit through the door? Would she even feel comfortable in such a small place? But Nayeli seemed aware of the space and kept a respectful distance, stopping near the porch instead of trying to enter. Her eyes moved gently across the farm, the barn, the windmill, the row of trees swaying in the night breeze. It was as if she was studying everything, trying to understand Samuel's life piece by piece. "You have a peaceful place," she said softly. Samuel smiled. "Thank you. It's simple, but it's home." He went inside to get her some food and water. Even though she was tall, he figured she might still appreciate the gesture. He brought out a large jug of water, a loaf of bread, a bowl of cooked vegetables, and some fruit. When he returned outside, Nayeli was sitting on the ground near the porch, waiting with a calm expression. She didn't want to cause trouble, and she didn't want to enter his house without being invited. Samuel placed the food in front of her. "I don't know if it's enough, but please eat." Nayeli touched the bowl gently, almost as if she didn't believe it was for her. Then she looked up at Samuel with sincere gratitude. "You are kind." Samuel sat on the porch steps, watching her eat. Even though she was far bigger than any person he had ever seen, her movements were gentle and thoughtful. She broke pieces of bread slowly, took small bites, and ate with quiet manners. There was something graceful about her, something that came from upbringing rather than appearance. After a few minutes, Samuel asked the question that had been on his mind since he met her. "Have you always been this tall?" Nayeli placed the bread down for a moment and nodded. "Since I was born, yes. My mother said our ancestors carried a unique gift, something called the spirit growth. It's rare. Only a few in our history ever had it." Samuel listened carefully. He had heard stories of old tribes and their traditions, but nothing like what Nayeli described. "Were your family like you?" he asked. "Not in size," she replied softly. "But they were strong in spirit. They taught me how to live with respect for nature, for people, and for myself. They believed I had a purpose, even if they did not know what it was." Samuel could hear a touch of sadness in her voice. She spoke of her family with love, but also with a distance that hinted at loss or separation. He didn't want to push her, so he waited patiently for her to continue. "They protected me when I was young," she said. "They were proud of me. But as I grew older, the world around us changed. People outside our land began to talk. Some were afraid. Some believed strange stories. My tribe wanted peace, but fear can grow faster than truth." Samuel nodded slowly. He understood. People often reacted strongly to what they did not understand. He imagined how difficult it must have been for her tribe to protect someone so different. "Did you leave them?" Samuel asked quietly. Nayeli looked down at her hands. "Yes, I had to. I did not want my family to face difficult questions because of me. I wanted them to live in harmony. So I walked out on my own, hoping the world would give me a place to rest." Her voice was calm, but Samuel felt the weight behind it. She had left the only people she had ever known, not because she wanted freedom, but because she wanted to protect them. That kind of choice required strength, not physical strength, but emotional strength, the kind that comes from love. "How long have you been traveling?" Samuel asked. "Years," she answered. "Sometimes I stay in the mountains, sometimes near rivers. I move when I feel I must. I never stay close to towns for long. People often see me as something to fear." Samuel looked at her and felt a gentle ache in his chest. He couldn't imagine living such a lonely life. Always moving, always hiding, always being judged without a chance to explain. "You don't have to hide here," Samuel said after a moment. "No one comes to my farm without a reason. You can rest here for as long as you like." Nayeli lifted her head, surprised. "What if people find out?" "I'm not worried," Samuel said simply. "If I can trust you, then that is enough for me." A quiet smile touched her lips. It was a soft, grateful smile, one that made her eyes shine for a moment. Samuel felt a warm sense of peace settle between them. The next morning, Samuel woke early as usual. He stepped outside and saw Nayeli sitting near the barn, watching the sunrise. She looked peaceful, as if she felt safe for the first time in a long while. Samuel walked toward her with 2 cups, one small for himself, and one large bowl filled with warm tea for her. "You wake early," he said. "I'm used to it," Nayeli replied. "The morning air carries messages of hope. My family taught me to listen." They shared a quiet moment as the sun painted the sky with shades of orange and gold. Samuel noticed how comfortable she looked now, as if the land welcomed her presence. After breakfast, Samuel went to repair the fence where the calf had escaped. Nayeli stood a few steps away, watching him work. When she saw him struggling to lift a heavy wooden beam, she stepped forward. "Let me help," she said. Before Samuel could respond, she lifted the beam with ease. Her strength was incredible, but she used it gently, as if she understood how fragile the wood could be. Together, they fixed the fence in half the time it would have taken Samuel alone. "Thank you," he said. "You have given me shelter," Nayeli replied. "I want to help if I can." From that day, Nayeli became a quiet presence on the farm. She helped Samuel carry heavy tools, moved fallen branches, and made tasks easier that used to take him hours. She never complained, and she never asked for anything in return. Samuel began to realize that her help was not just physical, it also filled the empty spaces in his days. In time, they found their own routine. Samuel would work around the farm, and Nayeli would stay nearby, offering help when needed. They didn't talk constantly, but the silence between them felt warm, not lonely. Sometimes they would sit under the shade of the large oak tree, simply enjoying the sound of wind moving through the leaves. But the world outside did not stay silent for long. One afternoon, Samuel went into the small town nearby to buy supplies. As he walked through the market area, he overheard two men speaking. "Did you hear?" one of them said. "Someone saw a giant shadow near the forest last night." "Another one of those stories," the other replied. "People see all sorts of things when they're tired." Samuel felt a tremor of worry. He kept his head down and bought his supplies quickly. On his way out, he heard another group whispering about strange footsteps found near the fields. He stayed calm, but inside, his heart tightened. The last thing he wanted was curiosity turning into suspicion. When Samuel returned home, Nayeli sensed something was wrong. She asked softly, "Is everything all right?" Samuel looked at her and nodded slowly. "Yes, but people in town are noticing unusual signs. They don't know it's you." But rumors spread fast. Nayeli lowered her eyes. "I don't want trouble to come to your door." "It's not trouble," Samuel said gently. "It's just talk, nothing more." But deep inside, both of them knew that talk could become something stronger. Even without danger, unwanted attention could disrupt the quiet life they had built. Still, neither of them wanted to end this fragile peace. Their bond had grown quickly, quietly, but deeply. Samuel felt lighter with Nayeli around, and Nayeli felt seen for who she truly was, not just her size. As evening arrived, they sat near the barn, watching fireflies glow in the grass. Samuel realized that although the world outside seemed ready to question anything unusual, his farm had become a safe place for both him and Nayeli. A place where two lonely souls had found understanding in each other. Neither of them knew what challenges would come next. But they knew one thing: their growing friendship was worth protecting. The days passed peacefully on Samuel's farm, and the bond between him and Nayeli grew stronger with each sunrise. She helped him with heavy tasks, and he helped her feel grounded, safe, and welcomed. For a little while, it felt like worries had faded, but the outside world was not entirely silent. And Samuel could sense that calm days don't always last forever. One warm morning, Samuel and Nayeli were fixing a leaning storage shed. Samuel hammered nails into the side while Nayeli held the wooden boards steady with gentle strength. She enjoyed helping, not because she wanted praise, but because doing things together made her feel like she belonged somewhere. As they worked, Samuel noticed something unusual in the distance, a shape. Small but moving steadily down the dirt road. He narrowed his eyes. "Someone's coming," he said softly. Nayeli paused, her hand still on the wood. "To your farm?" Samuel nodded. "Looks like it." Nayeli stepped back calmly. "I should stay out of sight." He agreed with a slight nod. He didn't want anyone to misunderstand her presence or get curious in the wrong way. She quietly moved behind the shed, close enough to listen but far enough not to be seen. A few minutes later, Samuel saw three men approaching. They were familiar faces from the nearby town. Curtis, the store owner, Merrick, who ran the mill, and Jonah, a farmer from the east side. None of them looked angry or rude, but they looked curious, too curious for comfort. "Morning, Samuel," Curtis said with a polite wave. "Morning," Samuel replied, wiping his hands on his shirt. Merrick looked around the farm. We were hoping to talk to you about something. Just a small thing. Samuel nodded slowly. What's the matter? Jonah stepped forward. People around town keep saying they've seen strange things near your fields. Some talk about shadows moving at night. Others mention large footprints near the forest. Samuel felt a tightness in his chest but kept his voice calm. Footprints? Curtis nodded. Yes. Big ones. Larger than any animal around here. Folks are starting to wonder if something odd is happening. Samuel kept his face steady. Nothing strange here. Just my usual farm work. The men exchanged looks. They didn't seem fully convinced. But they weren't accusing him of anything either. They were simply curious. Maybe even a little worried. We're not here to trouble you, Merrick added. We just want to make sure everything is all right. We care about the land and the people around it. Samuel appreciated their concern, but he also knew that even friendly curiosity could grow into unwanted attention. He needed to keep Nayeli safe. Everything is fine, he said firmly, but politely. I haven't seen anything unusual. Curtis looked around once more, then nodded. If you say so. We trust you, Samuel. You've always been honest. They talked a little more about the weather and crops. Then the men finally walked away. Samuel watched them go until they disappeared down the path. Only then did he let out a slow breath. Nayeli stepped out from behind the shed. She looked calm, but Samuel could see the worry behind her gentle eyes. People are beginning to notice, she said quietly. I know, Samuel replied, but it doesn't mean they'll cause trouble. I don't want them to fear you because of me, she said, lowering her head. Samuel stepped closer. No one fears me, Nayeli, and I'm not afraid of them. She looked at him with gratitude, but also sadness. I've seen how quickly curiosity can turn into misunderstanding. I don't want to bring that here. Samuel shook his head. You haven't brought anything bad. You've been nothing but helpful. She smiled softly, but her eyes still carried a heavy truth. They both knew the world rarely accepted something it didn't understand. Later that evening, they sat near the big oak tree behind the farmhouse. The sky was painted with shades of peach and lavender, as the sun gently lowered behind the hills. The moment was peaceful, but Samuel sensed that Nayeli had something on her mind. After a long silence, Nayeli spoke first. Samuel, if it becomes too dangerous for you, I should leave. Samuel looked at her sharply. Leave? Why would you say that? Reven, her hands rested on her lap. You have given me kindness. I don't want that kindness to bring you any trouble. He took a slow breath. You think your presence is trouble? I think people will not stop wondering, she answered calmly. And wondering often leads them to places they never meant to go. Samuel stared into the distance before replying. You think leaving would solve things? It would protect you, she said softly. He turned toward her. And who will protect you? Nayeli's eyes flickered with emotion. I've lived alone for years. I can continue. Samuel shook his head. You've lived alone because you had no choice. But now? Now you do. Her breath caught for a moment. She didn't expect him to say that. They sat in silence again, letting the gentle wind fill the space between them. A few birds flew overhead, calling to each other as they found their way home for the night. Finally, Nayeli looked at Samuel with deep honesty. My ancestors had a belief, she said quietly. A belief that when two spirits meet at the right moment, they help each other continue in ways they cannot always understand. Samuel listened closely. She continued. Before I left my tribe, my grandmother told me something. She said that one day, I would meet someone whose life would connect with mine. She told me that when that day came, I should say these words. Let your life continue through me. Samuel froze, the words settling in his heart like a warm echo. What does it mean? It means, she said gently, that your purpose, your kindness, your spirit, they don't have to end with loneliness. They can find space in another person's life, and that person can help carry them forward. Samuel felt something shift inside him. Her words were not just a belief, they were a gift, offered with quiet sincerity. He looked at her and said, "Nayeli, your presence changed my life. I was alone for so long, and I didn't even realize how much I needed someone to share simple moments with." Her eyes softened. "But I'm not ready to lose that," he said. "I'm not ready for you to walk away." She looked torn between staying and leaving. "I don't want to leave either," she whispered. "But if staying puts you in danger..." Samuel lifted a hand gently. "Let me decide what danger is worth it." She took in a slow breath, surprised by the strength in his voice. He continued, "Nayeli, you brought light into my quiet world. You gave me someone to talk to, someone to work with, someone to share moments that used to pass in silence." Nayeli's eyes shimmered with emotion, though no tears fell. She looked down, then back up with a peaceful expression. "You have brought light into mine too." The wind moved softly around them, as if listening. Suddenly, a rustle came from the tall grass nearby. It wasn't threatening, just the sound of someone walking on the path. Samuel and Nayeli looked toward the direction of the noise. Through the fading light, they saw two men from town passing by in the distance, talking to each other as they walked. They didn't come to the farm, but their presence reminded both Samuel and Nayeli that more visits could come in the future. After the men were gone, Samuel turned back to her. "We'll face whatever comes together." Nayeli looked at him, and a warm calmness settled in her expression. "Together," she repeated softly. That night, she didn't leave. And Samuel didn't ask her to hide. Instead, they sat outside for a long time, watching the sky fill with stars. Their connection felt stronger than fear, stronger than rumors, stronger than uncertainty. In that quiet moment, both understood that the world outside might ask questions, but the world they built between them was filled with trust, honesty, and something rare, two hearts finding comfort in each other's presence. And although the shadows of curiosity still lingered beyond the farm, Samuel and Nayeli knew one thing: the bond they shared was worth protecting, no matter what tomorrow brought. The next few days passed quietly, but the air around Samuel's farm carried a new kind of awareness. Both Samuel and Nayeli knew that the peaceful life they had built was delicate, like a soft thread that could be shaken by even the smallest tug from the outside world. Yet, neither of them wanted to lose the warmth they had found. They continued their days with steady hearts, choosing to focus on each moment rather than the worries that rested in the distance. One morning, Samuel stepped outside with a cup of warm tea in his hands. The early sunlight painted the fields in golden shades. As he walked toward the barn, he saw Nayeli sitting near the fence, watching a group of birds fly across the sky. Her calm expression made Samuel feel at ease. She looked peaceful, as if she had finally found a place where her spirit could rest. "Good morning," he said gently. Nayeli turned her head and smiled. "Good morning, Samuel." He handed her a large bowl filled with warm tea. She accepted it gratefully. They sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the fresh wind and the soft sounds of the farm waking up. It had become a quiet routine for them, sharing the morning without many words, simply appreciating the presence of each other. After breakfast, they walked toward the vegetable garden. Some plants needed water, and the soil needed turning. Samuel worked with his tools, while Nayeli gently loosened the earth in areas that were too hard for him to manage alone. She didn't rush, and she didn't overwhelm the delicate plants. Instead, she worked with care, using her strength only where needed. "Samuel," she said softly after a while, "do you ever think about the future?" He paused, resting his hands on the handle of a shovel. "Sometimes. But I try not to get lost in it." Nayeli looked at the sky. "My people used to say that the future is an open path. It changes with every step we take." Samuel smiled. "That sounds wise." It is not always easy to follow," she said, "especially when you are unsure where the path leads." Samuel understood. "Do you feel unsure now?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. But not because I'm afraid. It's because this place has given me something new. Something I don't want to lose." Samuel felt his heart warm. "You won't lose it," he said quietly. She looked at him with gentle eyes, filled with trust. "I want to believe that." The day continued peacefully, with simple tasks and small conversations. But around midday, something happened that reminded them both of the world outside. Samuel was repairing a gate when he heard distant voices approaching. He stiffened and glanced toward the dirt road. Nayeli noticed instantly and stepped behind the barn, just to be safe. Soon, Samuel recognized the voices: Curtis, Merrick, and Jonah again. They walked toward the house with calm faces. Not angry, but clearly interested in something. "We're sorry to bother you again, Samuel," Curtis said. "We just wanted to talk." Samuel nodded politely. "What's going on?" Merrick scratched his head. "Some folks in town think they saw something unusual near the woods last night. A tall shape moving near your land. Probably just shadows," Samuel replied, keeping his tone steady. Jonah glanced around. "Maybe. Still, people are wondering if everything is all right here." Samuel felt a quiet firmness rise inside him. He knew he had to protect the peace he had. "Everything is fine. My land is quiet. I don't want folks worrying about nothing." Curtis nodded slowly. "We trust you, Samuel. We just wanted to check in." They talked for a few more minutes, but Samuel remained calm and steady in his answers. When the men finally left, Nayeli stepped out from behind the barn. Her expression was gentle, but filled with concern. "They will come again," she said softly. "Maybe," Samuel replied. "But they won't find anything wrong." Nayeli lowered her gaze. "Samuel, I don't want to be the reason people question you." "You're not," he said. "People talk. That's what they do. But talk doesn't change what I know." "What do you know?" she asked quietly. He looked at her with steady eyes. "That you belong here." A soft breath escaped her lips, almost like a sigh of relief. She didn't say anything for a moment, but her expression told him she felt understood. She felt safe. Later in the afternoon, the sky began to shift toward evening colors. Samuel and Nayeli walked together toward the hillside behind the farm, a place where the wind felt cool and the view stretched far. They often went there to talk, watch sunsets, or simply be together without worry. When they reached the top, they sat side by side. The golden light washed over them, and the world felt quiet. After a few minutes, Nayeli spoke in a soft, thoughtful voice. "Samuel, do you remember the words I told you before?" He nodded. "Yes. Let your life continue through me." She closed her eyes gently, letting the breeze touch her face. "My grandmother shared those words with me when I was young. She said I would not understand their meaning until I met the person meant to hear them." Samuel listened carefully. "When I said those words to you," she continued, "I didn't just repeat a belief. I felt it. Truly felt it. You gave me a place to rest. You gave me company. You gave me a life that feels connected. I want your life, your kindness, your spirit, to live on through the bond we share." Samuel looked at her with kindness. "Nayeli, you changed my life too. Before you came, the days were quiet, but they were also empty. I didn't realize how much I missed having someone to talk to, someone to work with, someone who understands silence the way I do." Nayeli smiled softly. "You made me feel human again, not like something strange or feared." "And you made me feel seen," he replied. They sat together as the sun slowly lowered, spreading warmth across the sky. Neither of them needed many words. Their hearts spoke through the simple closeness they shared. As the last light faded, Samuel said, "Whatever the world thinks, it doesn't matter to me. You're part of my life now, and I'm not giving that up." Nayeli's eyes glowed softly in the evening light. She whispered, "Then I promise to stay, to help you, to stand with you, to let your life continue through me." As my grandmother believed, a gentle peace settled between them. They stayed on the hillside long after the sun disappeared, watching the first stars appear in the quiet sky. Even though the world outside still carried questions and curiosity, Samuel and Nayeli felt stronger than those worries. When they finally walked back to the farm, side by side, the night was calm. The moon cast a silver glow across the fields. Samuel looked at Nayeli and felt grateful for the journey that had brought her to him, even if it began with a simple missing calf. Nayeli looked at Samuel and felt thankful for the chance to rest her spirit, to be accepted, to be seen for who she truly was. As they reached the porch, Samuel said softly, "We'll face tomorrow together." And Nayeli replied with the same calm strength she had shown since the day they met. Together, their story continued not with fear, not with uncertainty, but with a bond built from trust, respect, and quiet companionship. A bond strong enough to protect their shared life, no matter what came next. And as the stars shined above the peaceful farm, it felt as though the world itself was blessing the new path they had chosen. A path walked side by side, heart with heart, spirit with spirit.